On a quiet, overcast afternoon, Evelyn Carter walked briskly through the airport terminal. She carried herself with the kind of poise that turned heads, a tailored blazer over a sleek navy dress, a leather laptop bag slung over one shoulder, and an air of quiet determination. Evelyn's dark curls framed her face elegantly, and her warm brown eyes carried a flicker of intelligence that left an impression on passers-by. In her free hand, she held a boarding pass for a first-class seat, and as she made her way to her gate, her calm confidence seemed to set her apart from the crowd. Upon boarding the plane, Evelyn quickly located her seat in the first-class cabin. She offered a polite smile to the older gentleman seated beside her before carefully placing her bag in the overhead compartment. As she settled into her seat, she retrieved a small notebook and pen, jotting down notes with quiet focus. She seemed completely unfazed by the occasional curious glances of fellow passengers. Not long after, a flight attendant named Meredith Shaw began her rounds in the first-class cabin. Meredith was known for her no-nonsense demeanor and sharp efficiency. Her perfectly coiffed hair and crisp uniform spoke of someone who took great pride in her job. But today, something about Evelyn caught Meredith's attention, and not in a pleasant way. As she walked by Evelyn's seat, Meredith's eyes narrowed slightly. She hesitated, then circled back. "Excuse me, ma'am," Meredith began, her tone polite but edged with something sterner. "May I see your boarding pass?" Evelyn glanced up, momentarily surprised but composed. "Of course," she replied, handing over her boarding pass with a small, confident smile. Meredith scanned the ticket, her brows furrowing slightly. "This is for first class," she remarked, her voice carrying a note of incredulity. "Yes, that's correct," Evelyn responded evenly. There was a pause, and Meredith's frown deepened. After a brief moment of hesitation, she handed the ticket back without another word. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Though she walked away, her posture betrayed lingering suspicion. Evelyn, unfazed, returned to her notebook and resumed her writing. However, Meredith's unease did not dissipate. She soon found herself whispering with a fellow flight attendant near the galley, occasionally glancing in Evelyn's direction. The hushed conversation continued for a few minutes before Meredith returned to Evelyn's seat, her demeanor noticeably more assertive. "Ms. Carter," Meredith said formally, folding her arms, "I need you to step aside for a moment." Evelyn blinked, her expression calm but questioning. "Is there a problem?" Meredith's tone grew firmer. "I need to confirm something. Please follow me." Gathering her belongings, Evelyn followed Meredith to the galley. She stood in the narrow space, her calm demeanor unshaken despite the curious glances and whispers from nearby passengers. "There seems to have been an error with your booking," Meredith stated curtly. "I'm going to need you to move to the main cabin." Evelyn's brows furrowed. "A mistake? I don't think so. I booked this ticket weeks ago, and it was confirmed." Meredith's expression hardened. "I've checked the records, and I don't believe this seat is suitable for you." Evelyn's voice remained steady. "With respect, my ticket is valid, and I'd like to stay in the seat I paid for." Meredith's patience thinned. "You can move voluntarily, or I'll have to call security to handle this." For a moment, Evelyn's composure faltered. A flicker of disbelief and annoyance crossed her face before she nodded curtly. "Fine," she said, her tone clipped. Escorted by Meredith, Evelyn walked to the main cabin. The passengers' eyes followed her every step. Reaching an empty middle seat, Evelyn sat down silently, her grip on her laptop bag tightening ever so slightly. She stared out the window, her expression calm but thoughtful. Moments later, she pulled out her phone, typing a quick message with practiced precision before tucking it back into her bag. Her composed demeanor remained unshaken. In the first-class cabin, Meredith continued her duties, seemingly satisfied that the issue had been resolved. However, a younger flight attendant named Clara Hastings noticed Evelyn's composed yet distant demeanor and approached her cautiously. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Clara asked gently, her voice tinged with genuine concern. Evelyn glanced up and offered a fleeting smile. "I'm fine, thank you. Just a misunderstanding, I think." Clara nodded, sensing there was more to Evelyn's words, but deciding not to press further. "Let me know if you need anything." As Clara walked away, Evelyn's gaze followed her momentarily before returning to the window. Beneath her calm exterior, Evelyn was already setting a plan in motion. She wasn't one to let injustices go unnoticed, and this situation was no exception. 7 minutes later, the captain's voice crackled over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for flying with us today. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to ask our crew." Evelyn's eyes shifted to the front of the cabin briefly before she resumed writing in her notebook. Whatever her next move was, it was clear she had already calculated every step. Meanwhile, Meredith carried on with her duties. Oblivious to the chain of events her actions had set in motion, she moved through the first-class cabin with mechanical efficiency, but an uneasy gnawed at the edges of her confidence. Something about Evelyn's poised composure unsettled her, though she couldn't quite pinpoint why. As the flight progressed, Evelyn's calm exterior betrayed nothing of the brewing storm. She exchanged a few polite words with Clara, who continued to check on her. When Evelyn finally smiled faintly, it was a gesture not of resignation but of quiet resolve. By the time the plane began its descent, Meredith's unease had grown palpable. Her confidence wavered as she moved through her tasks. She couldn't shake the memory of Evelyn's steady gaze or the quiet certainty in her actions. What Meredith didn't know was that Evelyn had already made the necessary calls and sent the critical messages. The wheels were in motion, and the aftermath was inevitable. As the plane landed smoothly and taxied to the gate, the captain's voice came over the intercom once more. "Thank you for flying with us. We hope you enjoyed your journey." For Meredith, the journey was far from over. As passengers disembarked, her heart raced when two uniformed officials approached the plane. They spoke briefly with the captain before requesting to speak with Meredith directly. Nearby, Evelyn observed the scene with the same composed demeanor she had maintained throughout the flight. "Miss Shaw, we need you to come with us for questioning," one of the officials said firmly. Meredith's face went pale, and her colleagues exchanged uneasy glances. As she was escorted off the plane, the weight of her actions began to sink in. Evelyn remained in her seat until the aisle cleared, then disembarked quietly, her expression as poised as ever. The aftermath of the incident rippled far beyond the confines of that single flight. Evelyn's complaint reached the airline's executive office, prompting a thorough investigation. Training programs were overhauled, policies revised, and accountability measures strengthened. For Meredith, the consequences were swift and severe. The airline's disciplinary board reviewed her actions, and her failure to uphold the company's values led to her termination. Meanwhile, Clara received recognition for her professionalism and was promoted to a senior role. As for Evelyn, her calm determination had sparked meaningful change. While she never sought recognition, her actions served as a catalyst for reform within the airline industry, proving that composure and resolve could turn even the most unjust situations into opportunities for progress.